Hey y'all, and welcome to today's video. My name is Arena. It's nice to have you here. Welcome to the channel. Today I'm going to be reacting to TikToks of fake service dogs. I am personally a service dog handler. I have a genetic condition that causes a lot of health problems, and so my dog Elliot, I'll put a picture of him here, is a medical alert dog. So yeah, I thought it would be interesting for me to react to fake service dog videos. Someone will take a video or photo of a dog they think is a fake service dog and like call them out on the internet. I think it's not really a good thing to do. There's just so many factors that go into service dogs, and especially in the US, our standards for having a legitimate service dog are so low that it's almost impossible to tell if a service dog is a fake service dog, if they're having a bad day, or if they're just a poorly trained service dog. So I thought it'd be fun to watch these videos and give my opinion on whether or not I think that that dog meets the US requirements for being a legitimate service dog. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume that all of the handlers or fake handlers have a disability, because you can't tell if someone has a disability or not just by looking at them. So we're just gonna all assume that they're all people with disabilities, since you have to have a disability to have a legitimate service dog. Just a little side note, not every service dog handler is perfect all the time. I'm definitely not. There's times where I've broken service dog laws, like I forgot a leash or something. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. Okay, so when you first look at this video, it looks like the dog is like climbing on the seats and just like trying to get pets from its owner, and it's got the notorious Amazon vest. But I actually don't think that that first dog is necessarily a fake service dog. It's very possible that this dog is actually tasking. So a very common task for medical response dogs to do is something called deep pressure therapy, where the dog actually uses its body weight and presses down, usually on the person's legs or abdomen, to help regulate the nervous system, as well as help push blood back up to the head. This is actually a task that Elliot does for me a lot. So I could be sitting in class and he'll be essentially in my lap with his front paws to help the blood get back to my head. So it's very possible that this dog is actually tasking, and I don't see any other signs that this is a fake service dog. He's not being disruptive, he's quiet. Yeah, it's very possible that this is a legitimate service dog, and the Amazon vest doesn't make or break a service dog. Sometimes that's the only thing that service dog handlers can afford. So just because they have like a cheap looking vest on doesn't mean that the dog is a fake. So I think that both of the dogs in these videos could easily be service dogs. So busted number one.
Whenever you don't have the leash on your dog, that's our rule here, is you have to have a leash. So that's all we ask, when you put a leash.
Okay, so the leash laws around service dogs can be a little bit confusing. So just based on this first little section of the video, the person who's coming up to the handler appears to actually be in the right. So the ADA actually does say that service dogs must be leashed, harnessed, or tethered in some way, unless having a leash would interfere with the dog's work or with the person's disability. So in general, yes, service dogs do have to be leashed, but there are a few exceptions. I'm just not sure if this person meets that requirement. Unfortunately, a lot of people in the service dog community use that loophole to work their dogs off leash, even though they don't necessarily have a qualifying reason for their dog to be off leash. So I'll be interested to see what this person has to say.
Yeah, but I can't put one on her.
Why is that?
Because I have POTS, so I have like a fainting disorder.
Okay.
So if I faint, she's trained to go get my friend over there, and if I have a leash on her, I have no control of my hands, and I can fall on her, and then she won't be able to get help from me.
Okay.
So legally, under the ADA, which is the Americans with Disabilities Act, the law, which is above.
Okay, so yeah, this is one of those kind of gray areas with the leash law. Personally, I also have POTS and I faint. I think a good solution would be for this person maybe to utilize a traffic leash, which is a really short leash that you can easily drop and it won't drag on the ground. So if you're not holding the leash, the dog essentially could be off leash, but you do have the leash on there to meet the legal requirement. However, I wouldn't say that she's necessarily breaking the law because she has this explanation for why she can't use a leash, but I'm not sure whether that would hold up legally. In the spirit of fairness, I do think that both people technically could be right in this situation. So yeah, this one's hard to say.
Law, which is above any business's rules, I do not have to have a leash on.
Okay, she is correct here. Federal law will trump any business policy. Oh.
So Walmart's not a pet-friendly store.
Okay, so this is a little confusing to figure out what's happening here, but I think the person with the service dog is actually approaching one of the employees who is talking to another person who has a dog. Then this other dog is barking incessantly. So right off the bat, I think this other dog is definitely at the very least having an off day, and this business has at this point every right to kick that other dog out for being disruptive. Even fully legitimate service dogs can have off days, and if even a legitimate service dog is behaving poorly, any business can ask you to leave, even if your dog is a legitimate service dog who's just having a bad day. Let's continue and see what happens.
This is a service dog.
Okay, so the person with the barking dog is saying her dog is a medical dog. I'm assuming she means that this dog is a medical alert dog. I can't necessarily say if that's true or not. However, medical alerts dogs take an extreme amount of training, and I have a hard time believing that a dog who is successfully able to be trained to do medical alerts would not be also trained to behave appropriately in public. So this is feeling like maybe this is not a real service dog. At the very least, this dog could definitely be kicked out.
That's not okay. But if it's reactive and acting out, you're allowed to ask it to leave the store because that's
not the documentation. Okay, so this is again a huge, probably the biggest misconception about service dogs in the US is that we have documentation or a license or a registration. The United States does not have any legal documentation or papers or license or certificate to ensure that a service dog is a real service dog. So if somebody shows you a registration or an ID card or anything like that, it's a scam, it's fake. You could buy one of these fake registrations for a bottle of Nutella if you wanted. There's no legal backing to these. But unfortunately, because people believe this myth, when this documentation gets flashed to an employee, that then creates a standard that, oh, well, this person had documentation, so why don't you have documentation? And now the expectation that we can flash some kind of documentation to prove that our dog is legitimate, when that's just not true. If you have a service dog, do not get any kind of registration, certification, any of that, because that's just adding to the problem and making other handlers' lives harder because we don't have this fake documentation.
reactive and acting out, you're allowed to ask it to leave the store because that poses a threat to me and my service dog.
I believe as long as I have a tag on it, it's not.
There's no such thing as certifications or registrations or anything or IDs for service animals. He's a $10,000 service dog. As you can see, he's non-reactive. He behaves. This is how a service animal is supposed to behave. He has no ID, no certification, no registration. I'm sorry, that's just not okay.
Well, make sure it gets stressed.
Yeah, so the handler who's making this video is 100% correct. Even a legitimate service dog can get kicked out, so at that point, this yappy little dog definitely needs to be kicked out. And I also just want to say that her dog is doing so well. It's hard for dogs to stay calm, especially when there's another dog lunging at them, barking at them, being just absolutely crazy. So her dog is doing amazing. That takes so much training to be able to have a dog be that chill. So points for her. My camera's dying. I'll go get the charger. Be right back. Okay, I'm back and I brought an Olipop. I just got these. They're actually so good. So back to business, people.
So because so many people have called and reported Benelli and I for being a fake service dog team to the local service dog police of Las Vegas, Benelli and I are now facing serious charges, and today we had to go see a judge to face these obviously true allegations. It was extremely traumatic. She's never been through metal detectors. You can tell by the obvious lip licking that she was really struggling. The courthouse was full of loud and scary people, so Benelli had a really hard time containing herself and even tried biting a couple of them. I tried calming her down, but she was so scared that the judge was going to take her away and throw her in a shelter. But what really happened was the judge said that nobody really cares about anyone faking a service dog and you guys should just give up.
Okay, so obviously this is satire. This is such a well-trained dog, but oh my goodness. That was funny. He did bring up some good points though, and I want to start by saying I have seen other videos made by this creator, and he kind of has a reputation of being a little bit unapologetic in his opinions. He's a little bit controversial, I guess, but based on this video and other videos I've seen, his dog is a legitimate service dog and it's a very well-trained dog. People just don't necessarily like the way that he comes across. But I do want to touch a little bit on something that's not quite thought of that often, but Benelli, which is his service dog, is a Cane Corso, I think. It's a very like aggressive looking breed. It's very scary looking. Obviously, Benelli's very well trained, not aggressive, not disruptive, but that is a thing among service dogs, is different breeds can kind of give people a first impression of your dog that isn't always accurate. So I find that people with mixed breed dogs or rescues or these more like scary looking breeds have a lot more issues with people thinking that their dog is fake or poorly trained, and that's not necessarily true. It's just kind of a stigma based on the breed, but there's no restrictions on what kind of dog can be a service dog. You can have a Chihuahua or a Pit Bull or a Cane Corso or a Lab or a mixed breed. There's no restriction on that, and certainly breed doesn't make or break a service dog. However, some breeds are just easier to train and take to the job better than others. They're more successful on average at becoming service dogs. So that's why breeds like Labs and Goldens are much more common as service dogs, but also a lot more accepted as service dogs. I've never actually had anyone think that my dog is a fake, and I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that he's a golden retriever. People automatically just assume that he's legitimate because he's a golden retriever. I call it golden retriever privilege.
If you do not meet these criteria, do not wish to perform these responsibilities.
Sorry, she's very friendly.
From performing or feel you might suffer bodily harm if you perform these functions, please contact our flight before reseating. We kindly
Okay, so I've definitely experienced this myself where another dog with a service dog vest or ESA thing tries to like come up and say hi to my dog or sniff my dog while we're working or even on a plane. I've had it happen on a plane before. So this little bulldog is being very friendly to the golden retriever who is just kind of sitting there and not really reacting. Yeah, service dogs aren't supposed to be distracted by other dogs in public. We're supposed to have them trained for that and train them to ignore that. If this is a service dog, I would definitely recommend a little more training and desensitizing to other dogs, because a dog coming up to another working dog is very distracting to the working dog, but also we don't know if your dog is curious because they're friendly or curious because they want to start something. And personally, I hate it when other people's dogs try to come up to say hi to Elliot. It's very nerve-wracking. I don't know what the other dog is thinking or what it's gonna do. This could be a very bad situation actually, to let your dog go greet other dogs in public, even just other pet dogs. So the person who owns this bulldog should definitely be taking action to control their dog, but definitely would invest in some more training for this dog.
Yeah, that dog is so well behaved.
Thank you.
It's a husky.
Yeah.
Come on. And when she sees another dog, everything goes out the window. But she wants to play. She doesn't want to.
Okay, so this is actually kind of an interesting video on both sides. Obviously the husky is not behaving well. It is wearing a vest, so it's possible that the dog is just having a bad day, but that is some very flamboyant behavior from that dog and definitely grounds to be kicked out. And the owner of the husky is actually making comments on how well trained the other dog is, as her dog is like going ballistic, which I think is really odd because there's a lot of cognitive dissonance happening there. Like, wow, your dog is so well trained, as she has this dog that's just going crazy because the other dog is there. So that's a little weird, but I also think it's a little bit odd that the person with the calm dog decided to just stay where they were, and both parties just were kind of sitting in the aisle and staring at each other as the dog goes crazy. If I were in that situation, I would definitely take my dog and leave, go to a different side of the store. I do not leave Elliot in that situation, even though he's perfectly well behaved through it. I just don't want to take a chance like that. So I think it's just a little bit odd that they both just kind of sat there. And then the handler kind of goes on to say that the stress of that situation caused some kind of medical issue that the dog then alerted to. I've talked about this before on Instagram, but just because you have a disability and a trained dog, it doesn't mean that you're the right fit for a service dog. Service dogs do bring a lot of attention, and you will run into situations like this where there are dogs coming after you or people following you or just overall just being creepy, because it is kind of a spectacle to have a dog with you all the time, and that's just kind of part of the game. And if you have a condition that is easily exacerbated by really stressful public situations like this, I would definitely think twice about getting a service dog, because then you're essentially just inviting situations that will trigger health episodes if that is the case for you. I would say it doesn't really disqualify you for getting a service dog. It's sort of a risk and benefit analysis. Yeah, I feel like there are a lot of solutions that were not taken in this scenario.
Aw, what you over here jumping for? Huh?
No, you can't. Oh.
Out. I didn't see the service dog.
That is horrible. Oh my gosh. Wow. Okay. This is by far the worst one I've seen. Growling, barking, lunging, whole 10 yards. Like, that's immediate expulsion from me. You're done. You're out. Definitely not service dog behavior, and I would say this is the first dog that I could confidently say is a fake service dog, because if a dog is ever aggressive, that's like immediately disqualifying for the dog, like for the rest of its life. Like, if your dog is aggressive at any point, then that dog cannot be a service dog. Like, legally you can't do that. So yeah, that's pretty bad. And then I think the funniest, or even like the worst part, is at the end of the video, the person kind of pans around and you can see that this dog is wearing a service dog vest, and the person taking the video apologizes and says, "Oh, I didn't realize that was a service dog," as if that excuses the dog's wildly aggressive behavior. Like service dogs do not get a free behavior pass. Putting a vest on a dog and calling it a service dog doesn't mean that you can just let your dog run wild and nobody can say anything. It's quite the opposite, actually. Service dogs need to be held to a much higher standard than the average dog. So if a service dog or a dog in a vest tried to bite me, I would say that's even worse than a dog just as a pet trying to bite me. Like, that's crazy to me. Yeah, no, that's bad. I would confidently say this is not a service dog. Alright guys, well that is the end of the video. I hope this was entertaining, hopefully educational, and I hope you learned something about service dogs. Put in the comments if you have a service dog, like what's your biggest like issue with people bringing poorly trained animals into public. I just hate like the anxiety around it because you never know what that dog is gonna do. So yeah, yep, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Remember to like it and subscribe to my channel if you want more videos like this, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.